Welcome back to Leadership Synergized, everyone. This is our second episode with Ms. Lezlie Winter, our special guest, and I mean special guest. The experiences Ms. Winter has had throughout her 41-year career as an educator, plus on top of that as a student athlete, and growing up in and around education as a focus for her throughout her career is just simply outstanding. The excellence she's able to bring for all of us to gain value and to learn from is tremendous. And Ms. Winter, I know I held you over on overtime, so I appreciate it very much. And thank you for joining us again.
Thank you for having me.
So we were talking in our previous episode a bit around transformation, and as we work through still leadership and just allowing things to slow down as a leader, and that's where we perhaps have the greatest opportunity to be most effective. So let's talk a bit about the I in still that gets into inspiring and influencing. And Ms. Winter, we've talked off camera a bit about your focus on paying it forward and growing and developing your team. You're obviously, you've made reference many times in our conversations, and again on our first episode of Leadership Synergized, about the time frame in your life and career that you're looking at now, with retirement perhaps coming in a shorter window of time than maybe it once was. But would really appreciate hearing from you around this concept. And it's a concept you built a bit that some leaders really have problems with, I believe. The most effective and successful leaders that I have seen who are those who aren't afraid to hire someone to their team and staff, or to develop someone to be or to have greater skills and sets than perhaps they do as an individual, in particular in areas where we may have a weakness at. And in some regards, if I go back even to the 1990s, one of the key things about leadership and manufacturing that was being promoted was work yourself out of a job, hire people that are more capable than you are. Don't be insecure, because if you're bringing those people in, they're making your job more an opportunity to be more effective, but you're also building for the future. And leaders should be looking for the future at times. And that's exactly what you're doing at Mississinawa.
I couldn't agree with you more. I can tell you with 100% certainty that I have surrounded myself with a team that is much more talented than I am, and are just extraordinary young leaders that I believe are going to do extraordinary things for students and for public education in the years to come. And it puts me in the mindset that it's okay to retire, because we got too many people better than me that are in subordinate jobs. And I think you're exactly right. And one of the toughest things about leadership and influencing young people is, number one, I have never once thought I was above doing any job. My first year in education, I was a paraprofessional. I mowed lawns, got at a golf course until I got a full-time teaching job, and I loved every minute of it. I stayed in contact with those paraprofessionals that I served with. Most of them have passed on now. And I actually was a paraprofessional at Mississinawa Community Schools. So what a great example to come full circle for people to see that. And I still feel that way as a superintendent. I have never felt entitled because of my position, and I've never taken advantage of any aspect of our buildings, of our community, because of my title. It was very important to me that I demonstrate and modeled inclusiveness, and that I believed in all people. That part has been very challenging as far as you're very lonely. Because when you're in any kind of leadership situation, you have difficult conversations and you have difficult decisions that you have to make that are not always very popular. But understanding your core values and integrity, I think, and I'm a firm believer in standard operating procedures, because if everyone knows what the expectation is, it's a lot easier to have those tough conversations. And I just so happen to have a team that believes in that and are working daily to be better at that. And they're passing me up. There's just no other way to put it. They're that talented.
And that goes to speak volumes to the leader you are, Ms. Winter. Thank you for sharing that. You've got some really great things going on at Mrs. Senewal, and I know in getting to know you, that this next part of the still, and still again, when it comes to leadership, isn't about stopping and doing nothing or just sitting back and letting the world go and let it come together as it may come together.
Mhm.
Still is just all about allowing things to slow down, because especially in education, every member of every school community has a priority they believe the superintendent and their team should be working on. If educational leaders aren't careful, there's a lot of busyness that really doesn't value the child, the student in that piece. And getting to know you when it comes to the first L and still, for me, in my experience, it's about love. And that points
Mhm.
to further defining with focus on faith, family, and relationships. And you represent someone who takes each of those three, faith, family, and
Mhm.
relationships, very deeply, and allow that to help you be the leader that you are today, but also the individual that your students and children and staff need.
Right. This is probably one of my biggest strengths and something that caused me a lot of headache because I didn't balance this piece of it very well through my career, especially the sacrifices that my family had to make because of my decision in this philosophy that I have. But I absolutely believe in young people. And I believe in giving the right environment in the right situation that most of them will achieve. Now, when you have that philosophy, you got to have an army behind you that believe in it too, because when you're working in high poverty areas or high areas that have not had a history of academic success or academic programming, it takes a lot of work to see through and to see the talent of all the students. Now, I feel like we have on our team right now the most extraordinary staff, and that's everything from the bus drivers, the cafeteria, the paraprofessionals, the secretaries, teachers, and administrator that have embraced that attitude and are working very hard at achieving that. But with that said, early in my administrative career, I was determined to show people that students from an at-risk background and an at-risk community could achieve at the highest level. And I didn't always bring the faculty along the way I should have because I just wasn't gonna bend on that philosophy. That's probably my biggest regret early in my principalship is that I didn't make it more fun for the faculty during that time. But with that said, we've our students have achieved and our staff has achieved some unbelievable milestones in an at-risk community that we have, and programming, in my opinion, that's second to none. And being able to do it in our environment, I think speaks volume to the entire team.
Thank you, Ms. Winter. In our first episode, you talked a bit too about appreciating our worth and the value from a leadership piece. What that hit home with me around is that before we could truly grow and serve others, serve ourselves, we've got to really be self-aware. We've got to accept ourselves. And I used to believe that self-awareness was a one-time thing, right? You look in the mirror and say, well, there's Kevin, that's who I am. But how quickly you learn as you advance in leadership responsibility, perhaps, maybe more so in the organizational piece, but even in life, as our families develop, grow, and expand, is self-awareness must be, if you want to sustain excellence as a leader, an everyday thing, almost an every moment thing, such as our conversation we're having. You have helped me become more self-aware, but leaders who don't take the focal point time to reflect on self sometimes will miss out on opportunities to truly lead through their strengths. And in essence, maybe lead as someone else, which really isn't a recipe for long-term success.
Right. I think self-reflection is one of the most difficult things for not only leaders, but for people to do. And being able, and it's something I struggled with for many years. I was savvy enough to realize that I probably wasn't the most popular among the staff because of my approach on making sure that we were student focused and program was on student focused. I think sometimes I wish I would have had better self-reflection on that time on what would be another way to approach it. But as I've grown through the years and realize how important that growth mindset is, self-reflection has become a huge part of my daily responsibilities to myself. And I spend every morning in reflection of what were the positives of the day before, what were the situations that I wish I would have handled differently, and then what my charge is for that day. And that usually involves some form of devotion at that time. And I think that has been something that I have really tried to share with my administrative team, is that self-reflection and authentic conversation with each other is vital to success of accomplishing organizational goals. I've just seen tremendous growth, not only in myself, but in the team that way. Unfortunately, when you're in that growth mindset, it only takes one or two people in a key position to question you, and you start doubting yourself. But what I am trying to do, and I wish that I would have paid more attention to earlier on in my career, is that when you're following good standard operating procedures that were developed through a shared vision, then those people questioning you should not break down the foundation of the organizational goals. And if I bring another thing to our team that I think is important, is that they do self-reflect, they have those authentic conversations, and they trust in each other to think that they are being very honest and self-reflective of the situations that they feel may have been a failure.
Thank you. Well said, Ms. Winter. Ms. Winter, as we get ready to head down the final leg here of the second episode, and again, thank you so much for joining Leadership Synergize and sharing your experiences. And as you near retirement in the future, you might consider Words of Wisdom from Winter. What a great title. They put all the W's in there in that piece, in that segment. But reflecting back, what's one big takeaway, one big learning, the greatest learning that Lezlie Winter has had in her leadership career that you could offer the young leaders as they look to grow and develop and to increase their value as a leader?
Yeah. Put your family and faith above everything else. And that they, number one, have to get good parts of you. And if you throw yourself into the job, then they are not going to get the best parts of you when they are not a part of that process. The other piece is believe in yourself and find like-minded people who will not only mentor you, but be courageous enough to support you openly and be honest to help you self-reflect privately. And if you do not feel valued in that situation and you don't feel like you're growing, the most important thing to look is for another opportunity to be a part of a team that would see your value. And that's probably something very difficult for me to say, but I think sometimes as leaders, we get in the habit of accepting things that we know are not healthy, not only for us, but for our families. And we have to remember that we are modeling, especially someone who's in the top position of an organization, a CEO or a superintendent, we are actually modeling for your team how you should allow yourself to be treated. And that's something that I have definitely grown through the years and I take very seriously because I believe that public educators are the most important people in our society right now. And I believe that they need to be supported And I believe that leaders in the school system need to be supported and valued, and we need to be able to share that positive narrative with everyone we come in contact with. So my biggest takeaway is believe in yourself, put your family and your faith first, and surround yourself with people that not only make you better, but are willing to be honest and authentic with you in private so that you have an opportunity to self-reflect with someone you trust.
Well said. Well said. I couldn't have said it any better. While you may be looking at a phase of your career approaching, retirement perhaps, as you've mentioned, I know you're not done growing, Ms. Winter. Where are you in your growth journey? Where would you like to be in 5 years from now or in 2 years
Yeah.
from now?
I say I have a young son. My husband and I had a son late in life that is just an unbelievable human being that made so many sacrifices for me to be in this position. But I tell him all the time, I still don't know for sure what I want to do when I grow up. I just have so many areas that I'm interested in. I am very passionate about public education. I'm very passionate about mentoring young administrators to see their worth and to see how important their leadership is to the students and the staff and even the community, and to be a cheerleader for that. I just don't know for sure what I'm actually going to do in retirement. My husband and I both know that I just can't go from 60 to zero overnight. But I do know one thing for sure. I'm not going to be working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week anymore. I think you and I've talked about this before. I don't care how talented you are. When you get to a certain age, the motor's just not revving as much as it did before, and it gets harder and harder to keep that intensity. But I feel confident that something's going to be placed in my path that would not only be positive for my family, but would be positive for me, that maybe my strengths can be realized.
I have no doubt about that. Before we close out, though, we need to talk a little bit about Mississinawa. I know you have a great deal of pride and you just glow when you talk about not only your leadership staff, but the children and where the school is going. Talk about that path, because I think I really want to utilize this leadership synergize, because kids synergize everything. When I look at my young grandchildren, I get synergized. I see how simple life can be, but yet at the same time, you feel that great synergy to where some have said 1+1 really is 3 in that regard. Talk about where Mississinawa is going and why the smile when you talk about them.
Yeah, Mississinawa is just going to keep getting better and better just because of the commitment that our teachers and our staff and our administrators have. Programming that we have in place is, number one, we believe these students can achieve, and we're willing to stay the course with them while they go through their growth mindset. A common thing that we say in our, not only in our teachers meetings, but in our administrative meetings to support each other. You know, students do things at 10 that they're not going to do at 11 years old. They do things at 11 years old they're not going to do at 12. And one thing that's, I think, is very important that I would want the public to know is our elementary teachers are absolutely rock stars, because they don't always get to see the end result of a group of students that were extremely challenging for them coming through, and even a little bit the middle school. But our students are accomplishing not only at the state level, but at the national level. And one thing I should have mentioned earlier, a big takeaway, is I have not done a very good job feeling comfortable talking about my own successes, and we haven't done a good job in sharing the successes of our students. And that's something that in the last couple of years I've worked extremely hard on, is getting that out into the social media and celebrating the successes of our students and the successes of our teachers and the successes of our staff and of our administrative team. But the data that I could share with you, we are very data driven at our corporation. We believe in it because it doesn't lie, and it lets you see a very thorough roadmap on where you've been and where you can get to. And I couldn't be more proud of the accomplishments that are going on at Mrs. Cinderwall Community Schools, and to be honest with you, in our entire community. And you know as well as I do, when there's strong leadership synergy going on, then great things are going to happen.
That is so true. Wow, you are such a wonderful leader. And I appreciate you as I do your team and every educator out there. I get it. As much as we have pride and we promote the positive pieces, there's a whole lot of churn that goes on in that regard. So it takes leaders such as yourself and your entire team. And I just love seeing the pictures, the promotion of your meetings and sessions when you go on LinkedIn. And Ms. Winter, there may be a viewer out there now or in the future that as they listen to you and your advice, kind of relate directly and feel like you have more to offer. Perhaps they want to pick your brain more. How can someone follow you or reach out and gain more of your knowledge?
I would be more than happy to connect with anyone via social media or email. If they can should I give my email address in this?
You don't have to. You have a LinkedIn profile. They can look
I have a LinkedIn profile. There's a young administrator that I actually started following on Twitter. My team laughs at me. I spend a lot of time learning about technology, but as someone in their 60s, it hasn't been the easiest thing for me to do. But I'm just social media, this young person that's doing a Twitter account, I've not met him and I don't want to mention his name on a live podcast without talking with him, but every Tuesday, he sends out a question Tuesday and tags quite a few leaders throughout the state. And how courageous is that?
Yeah.
And I'm just so impressed with it. And I keep telling myself every Tuesday, because I don't always get to answer it every single time. Number one, I really don't understand how to answer to those things when you're tagged. I'm going to learn. But I keep wanting to send a message to him telling him that's great leadership, because I'm sure they have people saying some negative, and it's not negative. And I thoroughly enjoy reading on that. And I'm like you. I look for young, positive people who promote integrity and promote great best practices. I follow them on LinkedIn, and I consistently go and look at that, because I'm a firm believer that the power of one can be very powerful if you want to change the narrative for education and leadership in general. So I would encourage those types of connections, because don't feel inadequate, because I'm inadequate on the Twitter account, and I'm a little bit inadequate on LinkedIn. One post that was on this week, I actually thought I posted it in November of last year. I did not. And just surround yourself with people who are encouraging and have like-minded philosophies, and share with them and be involved with them.
Thank you, Ms. Winter. Words of wisdom from Lezlie Winter, just fantastic. And the thing, I didn't talk about this, but I just want to reference this piece as we close out. Effective and successful leaders such as yourself, really at the top of their skill set is just the willingness to be vulnerable. It's okay to open it up and let it out there. That November posting you thought you had done, I thought maybe you knew how to use LinkedIn in the backdrop and timed it in November to be released in February, March type.
Thank you.
So that was farther than me. I know how to hit the like button and comment every once in a while. And sometimes I get an emoji right. So I appreciate that. But Ms. Winter, I have so much respect for you.
Thank you.
Your words of wisdom, and I hope those of you who have had the opportunity to hear from Ms. Winter, because our Leadership Synergized program is all about hearing from people and introducing individuals who have made a difference in my life, but also in lives of others. And they're people maybe you don't get a chance to maybe get introduced to, but they're there, in particular in our educational system. And Ms. Winter is a great example, a classic example of a successful, effective leader. And might I add, one of the key components of the still leadership focus is the body of work, Ms. Winter has a body of work that I think is unmatched. And it's why you see and hear from such a qualified and quality level of leader today who by far has exceeded excellence. And Ms. Winter, I salute you and God bless you for all you do in serving our children. And they are our children, whether they're your community, my community, zip code, they're our children. And I have so much respect for you and just look forward to continuing discussions and hopefully we can share value with one another. But thank you again, Dan.
Thank you. And is it possible that I could have a conversation with you every morning? You sure are the most uplifting person that I speak to. And thank you for all you're trying to do to change the culture of leadership.
Well, I'm there. We can certainly arrange for a conversation, but thank you. And thank all of you for joining us and would love to hear from you if you ever have an opportunity to follow myself or again, Ms. Winter. We're both on LinkedIn. Reach out to us. Would love to hear some comments about the episode. And if you have some questions, we could follow up with. But keep in mind, leadership synergized isn't about busyness and non-value add. It's about still serving, transforming, inspiring and influencing, loving through faith, family, and relationships, and then leading into, through, and beyond our strength zone. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do for leadership. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you very much.